What's up, tennis fans? Sleepy Pigs here. We got some quarterfinal matches to talk about. Let's take a look at the matchups. This is going to be a great matchup, and guys, I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what the heck to do with this match here. We got Tommy Paul taking on Flavio Cobolli. Head-to-head here is 1-0 in favor of Cobolli. But let's talk first about Tommy Paul's path to the quarterfinals. It'll be Hurkacz in 3 sets, Vallejo in 3, and then a shocking upset of Alexander Zverev in 3 sets. And, this kind of wraps up a very poor summer season for Zverev. Let's talk a little bit about this Zverev-Paul match, because there are a few things that I wanted to note. Number one, Zverev had a match point in that breaker. The score was 4-6, 7-6, 6-4. Zverev had a match point in that breaker, up 6-5, and it really felt like this match was going to be done and dusted. We wouldn't even have anything more to say about it. But he plays this very nervous, tight match point, and you can just feel it. Like you watch as they're in a backhand rally, kind of going like center, but towards the backhand side, and you can just feel it. Like the Zverev shots are starting to get shorter and shorter and shorter, and then he finally misses one into the net. And if you're Tommy Paul, you might as well. That's his better side. If he misses a forehand with the rally ball, I guess, maybe you say, okay, that's his weaker side. But on the backhand he's missing, honestly, guys, if Zverev has those types of nerves, I feel like he's better off just roping a backhand down the line. Even though, yes, maybe you don't really have a great look at it, but what's the risk? You know within 9 shots you're probably going to lose that point. So you might as well take a risk and maybe put some pace on the ball and see if you can throw Tommy off a little bit. Tommy's able to hold on to that breaker 8-6. Zverev goes up 4-2 in the third set, and you think again, it's done. And Tommy's able to rattle off 4 straight games to win 6-4. Now, that final break of the Zverev serve was a really tough one. At 30-all, they pause because of a rain delay. And then they come back out, and Zverev hits a double fault. Tommy was able to get the Zverev first serve back in play on the break point and get the break there. And guys, all the credit to Tommy Paul. I thought he played great. I thought the second set, he upped his game. He upped his aggression. He really started to take it to Paul, was coming into net. He really started to take it to Zverev, was coming into net, putting a lot of pressure on him, not letting him get comfortable. We even saw a one-handed backhand passing shot from Tommy. I mean, his talent level is through the roof, and that was on full display today. I felt like in some of these bigger moments, he kind of realized that Zverev was going to kind of cough up an error, and we saw Tommy get a little bit more, I don't want to say defensive, because he wasn't really far back. He was just willing to kind of put in a few more rally balls to see if Zverev was going to force the error, and if not, Tommy was looking to find some offense later in the rally. I mean, I do really give Paul a lot of credit. I thought he returned the Zverev serve extremely well too. But this is a match that Alexander Zverev has to win, and this is a match that, to me, it's so hard. It doesn't matter what the U.S. Open draw looks like. It's going to be hard for me to pick Zverev to win a slam when you see something like this. But this is a big win for Tommy Paul. I said in the comments, guys, I really thought this is an indicator for us. Can Tommy Paul make a run at the U.S. Open? Does he have that confidence? Does he have the focus? We talk about lost to Mychek in straight sets, lost to Lerner Tien, only winning 5 games against Lerner, but now comes out here and beats a top 3 player in Alexander Zverev. What more can we say? A great match from Tommy Paul. Let's talk about Cobolli's path to the quarterfinals here. It will be Kekmanovic in 3 sets, Alexander Blocks in 3, and then Rafael Hadar in 3 sets. And guys, this was a fun match to watch. Both guys roping their shots, forehands on full display. I thought the Cobolli forehand looked phenomenal today. He was really stepping in, pummeling his shots. And then, In my opinion, I think at the beginning of that third set, you really notice Hadar starting to rush some of these points, trying to come to net, and that's a big indication that he doesn't want to stay in these longer rallies because he just doesn't have the legs to do so. So I think that kind of threw him off a little bit. Like he really had one way of winning in that third set, and it just didn't work. It just didn't work for him. Cobolli was able to get a break in the middle of that set and then hold for a 6-3 win. But this is a really nice match from Flavio Cobolli. I mean, these guys going back and forth, breaking each other in the second set. And you had Cobolli. Sorry, you had both these guys going back and forth, breaking each other in the second set. I mean, this was just a very tough match for these guys, and I don't. If these guys play again in the U.S. Open, I feel like I'm gonna lean towards Hadar because I want to see what a well-rested Hadar is gonna do against Flavio Cobolli. I thought that third set, and we talked about that. I think I said Hadar in three, but I did mention the legs of Hadar that we had to look out for those, and I thought those gave out a little bit here. We did get a fair amount of unforced errors from Cobolli, but that's kind of what you're gonna see when he ropes his forehand that way. He takes a lot of risks, and here they paid off. Let's talk about these records here. We got Tommy Paul coming in. He's 17-8 on the hard courts, 13-6 last year, 17-12 the year before. He's coming off a loss in straight sets to Lerner Tien in Montreal. Flavio Cobolli, on the other hand, he's 12-6 on the hard courts, 9-13 last year, 26-13 the year before, and he's coming off a straight set loss to Yannick Hanfmann in Montreal. That was in the second round. A little bit of a bad loss there. These guys played only one match back in this very tournament in Cincinnati, 2024. It was a 6-2, 4-6, 7-5 win for Cobolli over the number 10 seeded Tommy Paul in the first round. A very tough match there. Guys, this is such a hard match to pick. I mean, you got that forehand of Cobolli. Tommy's definitely going to have to contest with that. I thought one of the better things in those tighter rallies was Paul knew he could just kind of tighten up his game, and he's so good at that, just putting a deep rally ball back in play and waiting for that Zverev miss. This is going to be the exact opposite. In these tight rallies, the ball is going to be hit at Mach 50 from Cobolli. Whether it goes in or not, that's another question. But that's what you're going to get. It's going to be a totally different look. Like Cobolli's going to take his risks no matter what. And the question for me is Tommy going to be able to kind of withstand these body blows and sucker punches that Cobolli's going to throw at him? Because I'm looking at this and thinking, we're going to have probably 65% of this match is going to be Cobolli on offense, or Cobolli controlling the center of the court. I don't know if I really see Tommy being able to do that. However, I did really like the Tommy Paul return of serve. I thought that looked good, and I think that's going to be something, he was able to step in and punish some of these Zverev second serves. So he'll definitely do that against Cobolli's second serve. Cobolli's got a pretty predictable second serve. Loves that kick on the ad side. Hmm. Normally I'm gonna go with the guy with the bigger weapon, but I gotta go with my American feels here. I'm taking Tommy Paul. I think he's gonna get this one done in 3 sets. We got Tirante and Fils here. No head-to-head between these two guys. Let's talk about Tirante's path to the quarterfinals first. It would be Choinski in the first round in 3 sets, Djokovic in 3 sets, Landaluthe in straights, and then today Menchik in three. And guys, these have all been really tough matches that he's been able to just really fight through. He's going on 10 hours on court compared to Fis's 5 hours. I mean, incredible stuff here. I really thought watching this Menchik match Menchik able to kind of sneak out a break in the final game there, and that really helped him, get some confidence. Neither of these guys had seen a break point until Menchik was able to break in the final service game of Tirante. And then they come out, and we see Tirante start to make a few return. He stands a little bit differently on the return, plays a little bit more defensive, just starts to put more of these Menchik serves back in play, and that really allowed him to dig into the return games of Menchik. And that, to me, we talk about that. If you're able to get Menchik into these rallies, it's like a 50-50 shot if you're like a top 30 guy. Top 30, top 40 guy. Obviously, Toronto's a little bit farther outside of that. He's 50 now. Going to be higher after this week for sure. But yeah, I mean, we'll say if you're a top 50 guy, you just get that Menchik serve back, and he really, if he's not hitting the ball aggressively the way we saw in the French Open, he was using the backhand down the line extremely well. Tried some of those today, but they weren't as aggressive as I remember seeing at the French. So this was a great match for Tirante. I mean, there are some returns that we saw that he just roped. I think we saw a 107-mile-an-hour forehand today. That's just insane stuff. This guy's playing some top-notch tennis, and you talk about, I don't know if he's gonna make that 32 cut. So he's gonna be a dangerous floater for these seeded players going into the U.S. Open. We gotta look out for him. And a great 3-set win there for Tirante. 5-7, 6-4, 6-4 win. He's going to take on Arthur Fils, and let's talk about Fis's path to the quarterfinals here. Beating Hanfman in straight sets, beating Lehechka in 3, and then today beating Demonar in straights. And, this was kind of what we expected. I expected, I know some people thought maybe Fils was going to go 3 sets, and yeah, I get that when you watch him against Lehechka. He did have a little bit of trouble closing that match out, had a match point in that second set, struggled to close it out. But here, I really do feel like you see Demonar go against some of these bigger hitters, and I just think his ball sits up for these guys. It obviously, it's going to be court dependent and, what kind of balls they're playing with. But for me here, it really did feel like that ball was just sitting for Fils. He was able to rope the forehand. A lot of the points that Demonar was able to win were off that Fils error on the forehand side, but we didn't really see much of Demonar trying to play a lot of aggressive tennis. One thing I did like that he did was he did a lot of hitting behind Arthur Fils, and that kind of exposed, Fils likes to hug the baseline because he loves going in aggressive and like just looking for the short ball and torching it on the forehand side. But if somebody hits deep behind you, now he's got to kind of like move the body a little bit. Sometimes he struggled with that shot. I saw Demonar do that a few times, so I thought that's a pretty good game plan to implement against Fils. But a 6-3, 6-4 win for Fils there, and we did have a few stoppages with the rain too, so you wonder if that throws off. You talk about Demonar, he's a very rhythm type of player, and when you go out, you're starting and stopping and starting and stopping. It's very hard to get into a good rhythm, so you wonder if that really did affect him there too. Let's talk about the records here. We got Tirante coming in. He's 14-7 on the hard courts, 14-7 last year, 5-4 the year before that. He's coming off a 6-4, 6-4 loss to Lerner Tien in Montreal in the round of 16. And that was a match where we really felt like he was just a little bit, I don't want to say out. I guess outclassed is probably the best way to put it, because he's got all the talent in the world, and I feel like if he met Lerner maybe a little bit earlier in that tournament, he would have had big opportunity. But having that pressure of winning a quarterfinal, he got up an early break against Lerner. Then Lerner started to step his game up. I felt like there's a lot of pressure on him here, and you notice now we come into a fourth round against Menchik, doesn't make the same mistake. So love him making those adjustments there. Arthur Fils, on the other hand, he's 17-5 on the hard courts, 10-6 last year, 15-9 the year before. He's coming off a quarterfinal loss to Hadar in Montreal. I mean, Fils' only loss in this hardcourt season has been to Hadar. First round loss to Hadar in DC, and a quarterfinal loss to Hadar in Montreal. And I'm telling you guys, I really think that first round loss in DC for Fils was probably the best thing to happen to him, because we saw what happened when he made a few deep runs in those clay tournaments, ended up getting injured in Rome and ended up getting injured in Madrid. I believe, and had to pull out. And that was really disappointing there. Didn't get to see him play at the French Open. Fils was able to beat Schweida, Navoni, and Nori in two straight sets, 1-3 setter against Schweida before losing to Hadar in straights. As you mentioned before, no head-to-head here, guys, and the predictor's telling me the predictor's telling me Fils is going to win in straights, and I I kind of agree, but I also think given the serve of Tirante, I think we're gonna get a breaker at least here. I'll be interested to see how Tirante is able to play some defense against that Feast forehand. I mean, it's kind of funny. What's going to be the bigger shot on the court, the Feast forehand or the Tirante forehand? Or the Feast serve or the Tirante serve? We got two guys, big hitters, going up against each other. We saw Feast go up against a big hitter in Rafa Hadar, and he lost in straights. He struggled against Lehechka, another big hitter as well, and Lehechka does struggle on the backhand side. I just think Tirante does a much better job playing defense. He's able to get a few more shots back. I do think there are instances where he does misfire. I mean, like you look back to that Lerner Tien match, he was misfiring a lot on the forehand side, which was his go-to shot. And honestly, if you're his coach, you got to tell him like just keep going for it because that's your moneymaker. That's your shot. I'm curious about the legs of Tirante as well. We're looking at about 10 hours on court, as we talked about. So I'll be interested to see if that plays a factor. I also think nerves are going to play a factor. If he does get in a situation where he can close this match out, is he going to be able to? Feast loves playing kind of like that role of the underdog. He likes doing that with the pressure against him. Guys, I think Feast is going to win this. I think Feast is looking pretty good. I do have questions because I feel like I saw a lot of errors on that Feast forehand side. It's just he was able to outmatch it with the winners. But I'm going with Feast here. I think he's going to take this one in 3 sets. And we got Taylor Fritz playing Brendan Nakashima head to head here is 4-1 in favor of Fritz. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's talk about Taylor Fritz's path to the quarterfinals here. It will beat Mickelson in straight sets, Merida in straights, O'Connell in straights. And, the match tonight against O'Connell, Fritz did what he needed to do. He held serve. But it was pretty clear to me, I felt like he really could have taken it to O'Connell. He could have come out. He could have been roping the forehand a little bit better. But I felt like he came with the B game. Knew he was going to win this match no matter what. It would take a monumental effort, like we talked about, for O'Connell to beat Fritz. And Fritz seemed to expect that win. It got a little bit sticky. We were at 4-all in the first set. 5-4. O'Connell serving to stay in the set. Not able to do it. Throws in a few errors there, a few loose errors. So Fritz was able to win that set, and then we get another back and forth set where Fritz is able to break in the middle of the set and hold on for a 6-3 win. I just felt like it was a little bit casual. I don't know if I want to say casual is the right word. I just felt like Fritz didn't really go, all out against him. Where like I feel like if you watch like a Yannick Sinner, even a Carlos Alcaraz, they're gonna win this match like 1-1 or 2-2 and get off court pretty quickly. Fritz was out there for a little bit. He was getting a little bit frustrated too with his game because I feel like when in some of those bigger points he kind of went to turn it back on to that A game and just couldn't really find it. But didn't need it today against O'Connell. Let's talk about Nakashima's path to the quarterfinals. Able to beat Kovacevic in straight sets, Medvedev in 3, and Borges today in 3. And what an impressive win here. What an impressive run it's been over the summer for Nakashima. Able to get an early break in that first set. And for me, I think that was so crucial for Brandon because I feel like that first set could have been drawn out a lot longer, but he gets an early break on the Borges serve, is able to cruise to a 6-3 victory. They get to a breaker, no breaks in the second set, and Borges is able to push out a 7-5 win in that breaker, and you think, wow, like, is this going to be the same case as Hadar, where we saw kind of like the legs of Hadar give out a little bit towards the end of that match? And it wasn't. Nakashima just so tough here at the end, and Borges was missing some really uncharacteristic shots. He normally makes these balls, and you could see him getting so frustrated about not making some of these close shots, and that's something, guys, we got to take note of. I mean, in these big situations, it just feels like Borges time and time again just comes up short, and I don't know. I feel it's tough because you have a guy in Borges doesn't hit a lot of has a good serve, can't really rope either side, so has to rely on the errors. When he does try to step in or take the ball early, that is slightly risky, if you're playing against a guy like Brandon Nakashima who's able to hit the ball with such depth. So we kind of have to keep an eye on that for Borges. In these tighter matches, he seems to really struggle. But a good win here for Nakashima in 3 sets, and you see him flexing at the end of the match. You can tell, like, he's so excited to be playing this kind of tennis. And we talked earlier about the Wayne Ferreira coaching change that he made just a few weeks ago. I guess now a month ago. And it seems to be paying dividends already. I mean, his game has elevated to a new level here. So we got to like what we're seeing here. Let's talk about these guys' records. Taylor Fritz, 16-8 on the hard courts this year, 31-12 last year, 23-10 the year before. He's coming off a straight set loss to Tirante and Montreal, but let's not forget that he was able to win the DC Open a couple days before that. It got delayed because of the rain, so that they played a Monday match, him and Hadar. Then they go over to DC, or they go over to Montreal, and he has to play a match on Wednesday. That's tough. That's really tough to get back there. And I think it's kind of smart, given the knees of Fritz. He's told us, though, in the press conferences that the knees are totally fine. He's feeling really good. But we watched Wimbledon against Zverev. He didn't look great there. So it's always a tricky situation getting deep into some of these tournaments or playing back-to-back tournaments. Nakashima, on the other hand, he's 20-8 on the hard courts, 19-14 last year, 24-12 the year before. 24 is the most he's had in a single season on the hard courts, so he'll be looking to pass that. He's coming off a loss to Ben Shelton in the finals of Montreal, and what an incredible run he had there, beating Altmaier, Drogwe, Rinderknecht, Darderi, and Hadar to get to the finals. Ran into a Ben Shelton who was just lights out that entire week. Let's talk about this head-to-head here. It is 4-1 in favor of Taylor Fritz. Nakashima's one win coming in this very tournament, though. A 6-4, 4-6, 7-6 win in the first round. The wild card, Nakashima able to upset Taylor Fritz in the first round, an 11-seeded Taylor Fritz. They played twice this year, once on the indoor hard courts of Dallas, where Fritz was able to win 6-3, 6-4. He was playing some pretty good tennis there, and we know Fritz does play pretty well on the indoor courts. And then they just played in DC, where Fritz was able to win 6-3, 3-6, 6-3 in the semifinals there. And I was there for that match. And, the one thing that stood out to me the most was the depth of shot that Fritz had and how much it frustrated Brandon Nakashima, because he couldn't impose anything, any part of his game that he wanted. We saw him in the previous match against Alex de Minaur coming to net, chipping balls, really putting pressure on the opponent. But when Fritz is hitting the ball like a foot from the baseline, it's so hard to do that. And I think that really frustrated him. And then tack on the ability of Fritz to hit that big serve to get out of trouble. I thought Nakashima returned his serve very well. And, from what I was watching, I thought Nakashima was reading the serve really well. You watch Nakashima's return, and this is why he's got one of the best returns in the game. He's able to see the toss and step in the direction of that serve. Now, you watch like Fritz, he doesn't do that. He's very athletic where he's able to kind of react quickly as it is. But Nakashima's making that move as that toss is going up, before the ball's even struck, he's stepping in the direction where he thinks the ball is going. And that's impressive stuff. I mean, he was reading the serve extremely well there. Guys, this match is going to be a close one in my opinion. But I think it's going to be a win for Taylor Fritz. And I just, for me, the one thing that I'm backing on is the fact that Nakashima's played so much tennis. Semifinals of DC, finals of Montreal, now in the quarterfinals of Cincinnati. I mean, number one, how much more can this guy do? But number two, it did look to me like we were getting a little bit tired towards the end of that match. Borges just not able to expose it. Fritz is definitely going to be able to expose it. Let's not to mention the fact that if Nakashima wants to maintain his court positioning, he's going to have to really dig those legs in to redirect a lot of these big Fritz forehands that are going to be coming, like we said, about a foot and a half from the baseline. Nakashima's also going on about 6.5 hours on court compared to Fritz, who's got 4. I think this is going to be Fritz in straight sets. I think we're going to see one very tight, close set. If Nakashima wins it, then maybe he can kind of push for a victory there. I don't see Nakashima winning this in 3, and that's kind of where I feel like he's gonna have to win it. Like I don't see Fritz dropping a straight set loss, but I also don't see Nakashima winning in 3. So I gotta go with Taylor Fritz to win this one in straights. I just think he's gonna serve extremely well. I think going up against a Nakashima that's gonna be a little bit tired, Fritz is just gonna take full advantage of that, and he's gonna work this guy. I do think, guys, and I said this about we didn't get it with Fritz and Shelton at Wimbledon, but I have this weird feeling that Nakashima is going to get a rematch either with Fritz or Shelton, and he's going to be able to turn that into a win. It wouldn't surprise me if it was Fritz, guys, at the U.S. Open. So we'll have to wait and see on that, but for now, give me Fritz. He's going to advance to semis and straights. And this match is going to be a great one. We got Frances Tiafoe taking on Lorenzo Musetti. Head-to-head here is knotted at 4-4. I mean, that just, really gets you even more excited for this matchup here. Let's talk about Frances Tiafoe's path to the quarterfinals in Cincinnati before we talk about that head-to-head. It would beat Sonego in the second round in straight sets, Lerner Tien in 3 sets, and Felix Auger-Aliassime in straight sets today, 6-3, 6-4. And a little bit of a disappointing showing here from Felix. We always talk about, Felix is as good as his forehand goes, or as good as his forehand will take him. And today, it just wasn't taking him anywhere. A lot of errors on that side, a lot of uncharacteristic errors from him. Wasn't really able to get it going. Went down a double break in that second set. Able to come back and make it a little bit of a match. We got some loose points from Tiafoe, which kind of made, I think he was at a 30-all game, potentially could have gotten broken. So that to me always, I like the fact that Felix was able to fight even though he wasn't playing his best. But again, still loses in straights. And a lot of this I think I attribute to the fact that he wasn't able to really connect or bully Tiafoe around today with that forehand. And I got to give Tiafoe some credit. I thought he played extremely well. Obviously, hats off to him. I thought he came out with a good game plan. The one thing that I really liked was the patience that we saw from him in some of these rallies, kind of extending some of them. And we talked about, his changing coaching staff and what they've been able to implement here, kind of making Frances a little bit more of a gamer, kind of going in and not just bullying every ball and roping every forehand that he can. Now we're starting to see a little bit more, I don't know if I want to say strategy, but like a little bit more patience, I guess, to get into these rallies. And I thought that worked really well against Felix because he would play like some of the 1, 2, 3 rally balls, and then he would just roll beforehand. So that would throw Felix off a little bit with the footing and everything. And we saw a lot of errors off of that strategy forced from Felix. So a good straight set win there for Tiafoe to advance. Let's talk about Musetti's path to the quarterfinals, able to beat Altmaier in straights, Zhang in straights, and Feria in straights. And guys, before we talk about the Feria match, I want to go through um, these guys and who they've played and the rankings, because I know, you're looking at Musetti and you're saying, wow, he hasn't even dropped a set. But the people that he's played, he hasn't played anybody inside the top 50. So you got Altmaier, he's number 65. Zhang, he's 110. Feria, he's 79. Tiafoe, on the other hand, has played a much tougher road. Sonego, 88. Learn to Tien, 12. Felix, 4. Just kind of let that sit with you, and I'm trying to give you guys as much information as we can here as you're trying to make your own picks here. But like, don't just look at like the score lines and say, oh, he rolls Michael Zhang, he rolls Altmaier, he basically rolls Feria, tougher set. And let's talk about that match now here. Musetti able to get an early break, and it kind of felt like in that first set that he was just going to roll through this. But Feria, does what he does. He just kind of digs in and really fights through, gets the match to 5-all, but drops a loose return game there. Musetti able to hold for the 7-5 victory. And then we see another early break from Musetti in that second set. And I feel like Feria kind of sensed that he just didn't have the energy to push himself to a potential 3-set win. So goes down a double break as well there and loses the set 6-2. Just really tough stuff for Feria. But again, we did talk about the legs of him and the potential stamina going on about 10 hours. I think had to get through qualifying, so going on about 10 hours into this tournament, it's tough. It's tough to win match in, match out, of course, and especially when you're going up against a guy like Musetti, who had his forehand looked great, the backhand he was able to step in on, and of course he's one of the best at turning defense into offense. The movement is always very solid. Dare I say that we're getting back to Australian Open level for Musetti. I think this is a great tournament for him to make a deep run here and get that confidence going for sure. Let's talk about records here. We got Tiafoe coming in. He's 17-8 on the hard courts, 13-13 last year, 21-13 the year before. He's coming off a loss to Rinderknecht by retirement, down 2-0 in that second. Calls for retirement, says he has hand pain, and it turns out he actually had a procedure done on his hand. So will be interesting to see if that, if he goes deeper into the U.S. Open, if something like that maybe catches up with him. But he sounds like he's doing okay now. Musetti, on the other hand, he's 13-5 on the hard courts, 18-11 last year, 13-12 the year before. He's coming off a straight set loss to Hadar, and kind of similar to Arthur Fils, whose only losses were to Hadar. Musetti's the same thing. A 3-set loss to Hadar in DC in the quarterfinals, and then a straight set loss to Hadar in Montreal. So we'll have to see if Tiafoe is going to be able to stop him here. Let's talk about their head-to-head. As you mentioned, 4-0 in favor, or sorry, 4-0, 4-4 tied up here. Their last meeting coming on the clay in the French Open. It was a 6-2, 4-6, 7-5, 6-2 win for Musetti back in 2025 in the quarterfinals. Remember, this was the run that Tiafoe had, really playing some miraculous tennis, getting out to the quarterfinals of the French Open. A nice showing for him, but Musetti was also playing some incredible clay court tennis at that time. Gets to the semis and loses to Carlos, I believe it was. Their head-to-head on the hard courts, however, is 2-1 in favor of Tiafoe. Tiafoe getting a win in this very tournament, 6-3, 6-2 over Musetti back in 2024 in the second round. He also beat Musetti in United Cup by retirement in the finals there, and then Musetti winning in Acapulco in 2021, 7-6 in the third there. And the Acapulco courts, guys, remember, they play pretty fast. This is so tough. These 4 quarterfinal matches. I could see, it wouldn't surprise me if I went 0-4. I hope I don't, but it wouldn't surprise me because these 4 matchups are very tricky. I'm leaning towards Tiafoe here, guys. I think he's starting to play some good tennis. And let's not forget, he had a great grass court season. Didn't really sorry, didn't really have anything to show for it with a third round loss to Bublik. But one Hala, an ATP 500 level there, beat Taylor Fritz in straight sets. So like I felt like he was starting to find his game. And then I felt like the frustrations kind of set in because you got another disappointing loss for Tiafoe losing to Bublik. I mean, Bublik, a great grass quarter, but he also had that disappointing loss in the French Open in the fourth round to Arnaldi. So I just, especially after being up 2-1 in the French, and then he fought back to get it to 2 sets all in at Wimbledon, but still, I think he really expected to win that match against Bublik. Bublik obviously a great grass quarter, but anyways, I just feel like he's clicking now, and I think this is a tournament that we could see him maybe make a run to the finals potentially. So I got to go with Tiafoe here. Sorry to drag this out. This is such a tricky pick here. I love the patience that we're seeing from Francis. I love the fact that he can come to net, and that's something that you have to do against Musetti. You cannot rely on kind of roping some bigger shots against him. Even Hadar, we saw, was able to come to net and kind of press him a little bit because the Musetti defense is just so good. He's fine playing, like 100 feet behind the baseline and getting some balls back, but then he also can rope shots past you from that far back as well. So I'm going with Tiafoe to advance. I think he gets this one done in 3 sets. And here's a look at our round of 16 records. 4-4 for me, not too great there. Going 500, kind of happy. A lot of upsets today. Gecko calling some of those upsets, going 5-3. Pamplemousse 6-2. I mean, really impressive stuff for the Pamplemousse. Only missing the Zverev upset and the Hadar upset. It looks like Gecko's going to hit that 60 win mark for this tournament. That's extremely impressive. Also want to give a shout out to Guy, who called out the Tommy Paul upset. Called it Tommy Paul in 3 sets. I said, that'd be awesome to see. I did say this would be a barometer to see kind of what we're seeing from Tommy Paul. And, he hit that one. That's a great call there. And KBL Sus calling today as an upset day. Said early on at the beginning of our videos that this is going to be a big day full of upsets, and it really was. I mean, we saw the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed go down today. A day full of upsets. Is that going to continue to happen? We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully we can carry our records into the quarterfinals. And as always, guys, thanks again for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share your picks in the comments. Share the video. Love hearing from you guys. A lot of really good picks today from you guys in a day that was full of upsets as well. We will have a video out individually for each of the quarterfinals, as well as a video out for the quarterfinals all together. I can't wait for these quarterfinals. This has been a really exciting tournament, getting me really pumped up for the US Open. I think we're going to have a really good tournament there in New York. Can't wait for it. I'll see you guys in the next video.